Another thing that I'm not very pleased with, or that I do not appreciate, is the fact that the government is still thinking about, okay, they must think about how to bridge the gap in the budget, and to that effect, we had the minister, the CS, talk about plans or proposals to lower the exemptions. So that suggests that immediately we get over this period where we have a pandemic, the taxes will go back up. They've introduced new ones. Those ones aren't going away, but the ones that were lowered will go back up. So that's pay, they did
corporation tax.
Yeah, corporation tax. The VAT, the withholding, in order to recoup, as he said, recoup the amount of revenue that they lost, which, by his statement, totals to about 535 billion, or 6% of our GDP. So, guys, if you're able to save, if you're able to invest now, if you're able to actually start something that would give you an income, do it now, because once you're back, a bigger portion of your pay now will go back to the government. So make use of the exemptions that we've been granted now, and hopefully we will
be able to manage the highly inflated taxes that are about to come. Although I think that's also a gross underestimation by the CS of how long it will take us to recover. I mean, if COVID, God willing, disappears, let's say in August, it will take one financial year for the economy to fully bounce back. Because people need to factor in the lag time for finding a job for most of the people who are unemployed. They need to rectify things like some of the taxes they've introduced once they start seeing the negative effect. Because something like we've kept saying, the digital subscription, what happens if they tax it and 5% of the people who use that platform leave?
They stop using it.
You've lost any revenue you ever hoped to gain anyway. So it's a gross underestimation of how much time we need to bounce back. But now is the best time to save and generate different income streams for you to be cushioned against the effects that are about to come. I think at this point in time, we'll move on to some honorable mentions. Or grey areas, or just areas in the budget we wanted to highlight and get your opinions on. So kindly do so in the comment spaces below.
So I think for me, something that I took note of was the government made inputs for mobile phones and mobile phone assembly duty free. So what such a move does, it's suggesting to the citizenry that you should look into making your own phones. You should look into, assembling phones the more. And so that was one move they made, trying to stimulate, I think, that tech space. However, at the same time, they went back and taxed electrical inputs up to 35%. It used to be 25%, but now they've upped it to 35%. So electrical parts and accessories become expensive. So with such a policy, I really don't understand what they are hoping to get. Yes, inputs for phones have become cheaper, and you would think it's to stimulate the ICT sector in general, because a lot of people access the internet through their phones. But if you're taxing electrical parts the more, then that just might counter the effect that we want to see with.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think if your phone is cheap, but everything else you need to use it for gets more expensive, like your charger, even the routers you use to access the internet, it kind of cancels. So it's a bit weird to do those two things at the same time. But it's a grey area. definitely be waiting for your comments. Some clarity.
Let us know what you think about that.
Yeah. I think also something pretty honorable to mention is Kenya is introducing its first sovereign green bond. So it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Because what a green bond does is that it forces the proceeds of that bond to be used for green development projects. For example, green here meaning in the sense that we are sustainable and mitigating the effects of climate change. So we are looking at, hopefully, this bond being used to improve, let's say, the way we have wind farms in Kenya, to improve the extent of those wind farms, to improve our solar panel uptake, to improve, our ecosystem and make sure that we go green in the best sense of the word. So a green bond obviously has, I think, two very key benefits. Obviously, a reduced
carbon footprint.
Yeah, a reduced carbon footprint, thanks. And also, there's a very lofty group of investors who are only investing in green projects. So now that allows us to tap into that capital from foreign investors who are interested in going green. And it opens up a whole new market for us also as an economy, in the sense that our bonds would improve. After Emakiba, this is pretty good because it's a pretty good place to invest in, and if the execution is done right, of course, it's going to be a very good thing that we'll look back on and be like, yeah, that was pretty good.
I think as an investment option, it would be very attractive to both foreign and local investors.
True.
If you guys want to know more about bonds and what it's about, do the deed. Yeah. Another thing that he mentioned that I think would be worth noting is there's already a discussion on developing a strategy for economic recovery post-Rona, and that ties up with the discussion to look into development agenda for Kenya, the development plan, which is Vision 2030. So they want to look at that document, since 2030 is only in 10 years' time, and re-strategize it to make it in line with the EU development agenda of 2063. So, same thing, guys. I will link the document in the description below. But let me know what you guys know of the EU development agenda of 2063. What sections of it do you think that our government can borrow and it would help our nation advance? We can move on forward with a more prosperous country. That being said, I was a bit excited with the mention of public-private partnerships and the intentions of the CS to revitalize that framework. So the CS have recognized that in as much as they're the government, they need you and I to take ownership of these development agendas, you and I to contribute in the development of our nation as a whole. And they are saying to us, okay guys, we want to work with you. You as the private sector, we want to work with you. And the government is hoping to get about 200B from the private sector in partnerships that would go to fund projects on transport, that go to fund healthcare, that go to fund education. So yeah, he wants to revitalize the framework, the PPP framework, and hopefully get at least 200 billion for some of these projects.
PPPs are definitely the way to go, especially because they introduce something that lacks with normal solo government-based projects, which is, accountability. The moment a private partner gets into the fray,
the reporting is
way better. And they have to really take care about their PR and everything, so they do keep the government on their toes.
So to close off on the honorable mentions, something that really caught my eye or ear because I was listening is part of the CS's ambitions is to turn Nairobi into an international financial center, and for it to be the financial center for the region. And I don't know what you guys understand by financial center, but when I think about financial centers, I think about all those cities that have a wall clock when you walk into a hotel. You know, there's New York, there's Tokyo, there's London, there's Hong Kong. And if you look at the financial industry, the financial and banking industries in those countries, and the sort of policies that they have to create that environment where international investors will decide, okay, we want our money to go through this country, we want our money for our investment in this region to be held in a bank in country X. There are a few things that we need to do. There are a few policies we need to set up to place Nairobi at that position. So it will be very interesting to see what are some of his proposals towards the achievement of this goal, which is turning Nairobi into an international financial center.
That's true. There'll obviously need to be a lot of groundwork laid to make sure the foundation of Nairobi being an international financial center is, legitimate. It's actually a pretty good financial center. So we're done with the honorable mentions bit. This time around, we're moving to the budget and you. So things we think affect you directly in your position, whatever position that may be, and that you need to take note of, as well as some of the opportunities we've identified for you. So for the budget and us in our positions, I think it's prime time for anyone with an entrepreneurial idea that requires capital and that will generate returns for, let's say, a short-term period of around 3 years to actually set up right now when the tax rate has been lowered from 3% to 1% for all that and over. So I think that's a very good relief for most small and micro enterprises. So this would be the time to take advantage of this period and make some savings on your taxation expense. An opportunity though for youth like us would of course be the revamped portal for applications of tenders. There's a dedicated amount of tenders that's meant for youth, women and the disabled. So as our big man tried, do set up a company with your friends.
Try again.
And hope against hope that you get it. And seek all the necessary financial acumen and advice you need to make sure it's most preferable for funding. So I think that's, of course, aside from sending fare at a higher cost. Those are some of the opportunities.
But if you can make money to counter that increase in the
why not?
Tax, the fare. No, I think another big opportunity that we have, especially as young people, is with the Kazi Mtaani program, and because they dedicated about 10 billion towards that specific program. The youth empowerment program also received, I think, close to $1 billion, and we still have the NYS receiving a huge amount of money from the government. So what this budget is communicating to us is that the government actually sees that we as the greater population, a very big proportion of us are not gainfully employed, and they're creating opportunities for people to get into gainful employment and become contributing members of our society. You will see it with the allocation, you will see it with some of the policies that they create and implement, such as taking up a certain number of young people for internships in the government agencies. So there's a lot of opportunity for young people. Also, there's a lot of opportunity for people who are looking into setting up businesses, such as they dedicated an amount of money to buy desks, 200,000 desks. So if you have skills in woodworking, that is an opportunity you can exploit. So there are a lot of opportunities that we can get as young people. To touch on the 1% turnover tax, some businesses might be opposed to it because they've not been paying this tax, but I think in a country of 48 million people, it's very unfair to place the burden of supporting these people on 2 million people, which is the number of people who are formally employed in our country. And because all their tax, their pay is what goes to fund the government.
That's right.
The government haven't, apart from VAT, haven't really put a pin on how to alleviate this tax burden on these 2 million people and generate funds from the informal sector, which is the larger majority. So the 1% tax, even if some businesses might be opposed, I actually think it's a good idea for our government. It might alleviate some pressure, some tax pressure, and hopefully that revenue will be used, to improve our livelihoods.
Yeah.
Because Kenya has brilliant minds, Kenya has smart people, Kenya has people who are willing to work. And I think it's very unfair efforts not to be used because of such a small thing. Yeah. But all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion as much as we did. This was, explaining the budget according to how we understood it, and hopefully might make you more interested, might make you more patriotic citizen, get involved with policy making, questions your leaders, ask them about their policies, and think about how we can better our society together. I really enjoyed this session, and Taicho, thank you very much for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure.
I don't think I'll give you fair to go back, but I would like to see you again on the channel. With that,
Thank you very much.
see you guys.
Deuces.
Oh, special shout outs to our production team. We have Mbibe, who this was her brainchild. She brought us together, so thank you very much for bringing us together. We also have Daddy Africa.
Daddy. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah. Who's behind the camera. In the description, we will link all their socials. Go follow them, go support their work. And until next time,